it's the same frustration.
Yeah, exactly. So here small businesses were not getting any relief from the government at all. The government here was only focusing on medical resources, because we obviously realized very early on that, because we got to see other countries, and because we had the example of, for example, Italy, we got to prepare in advance, which is why we had the lockdown, which is something we all understood a lot later, was that our lockdown was so that the government can prepare for the medical resources that they need. So
Correct.
they started creating huge units of just hospital, they started like taking over hotels and making them quarantine centers, or they
Wow.
started taking like huge arenas, stadiums, and making them into quarantine centers, because they realized that when it does hit us, we are ruined, because it's going to spread
Right.
like wildfire here more than anywhere else, because here there's no way you can socially distance. There is
Right.
just no
You guys are
way.
all stacked on top of each other there, huh?
Yeah. So but I mean, they did all of that, and yes, it worked, it helped in a lot of ways. I'm not saying that they didn't do a good job. Yes, they did do a good job in terms of the medical aspect of things. And honestly, everyone still got COVID. Like there
It's
are
a
little
virus. It's
exactly.
gonna virus.
But what we did realize was that UK was trying to achieve herd immunity, but I think we've achieved it. To be very honest, I think India has actually achieved herd immunity,
Yeah.
because we I've attended 4 weddings since October, and each wedding has had around 150 to 200 people, and I have come back fine each time.
Do you think you had it at some point? Did
I
you
got
do you,
myself tested, as in I got my antibodies checked and
uh,
all of that several times. I haven't had it.
oh, okay. Interesting. So you're just
So
threading the needle then.
I don't know how this is happening, but it seems like it's happening to everybody. Nobody around me, like I know like probably 15 people out of the, say, 100 people that I know, 15 have had COVID. And the rest of us are just going along with life, chilling.
Yeah.
And we are fine. So I do believe that we have achieved what Boris Johnson was trying to
Yeah.
achieve.
Yeah. Right. Huh. I'll be darned. I want to go back to something, because we could talk about the note comparisons forever, but it's a mental health podcast. I'm trying to want to honor that. I want to go back to something that you said earlier, because I think it's really instructive for listeners. You and I, as professionals, we suffer, we struggle. And one thing I said, I don't know when I said it. I've got 2 podcasts now. I don't know if you knew that, but I was like, one's about guns and mental health. It's this really cool thing that I'm involved in, suicide prevention by firearms. And anyway, at some point or another, I was like, wow, and this was early on, probably April. I was talking to a colleague, and we kind of had this epiphany. We went, oh man, we're the people go to when they're struggling, because we're supposed to hold the space where they can heal, because we have good boundaries and we have the training and all this stuff, right? Well, what happens when literally everybody is suffering and we're still relied upon as being able to shepherd and guide people through their dark times when we're all in the dark times? Like, how do we do that? And I suddenly was overwhelmed with this sense of, not dread, but I guess it was more like fascination, curiosity, and fear. That I was like, man, how much longer do we get to do this? And I was like, as long as it takes. That was my conclusion. That's how I got myself mentally through it. It was, I reckon, I always, as frequently as I can, I go back to the Jungian philosophy that the human psyche is limitless. So therefore, I'm not going to put a cap on how much I can do. So for me, I just kept going back to, well, I'm going to do it as long as I can, because as long as I'm here, I'm going to keep doing it. And there's nothing that says I can't. So if I can tap into that, maybe I can be a light and resource to others. But you were talking about how watching this actor die by suicide, you founded and head up a suicide prevention organization called Invisible Illness, and you're a clinician. what do you mean when you say it really affected you, because you were surrounded by all the media and stuff? And then also, so that's one question. What do you mean when you say it affected you so deeply? And then the second one is, how do you still maintain strength for your patients?
I get asked this a lot.
Oh, good.
But, yeah.
That means you will have rehearsed the answer.
But so when I said that I was really affected by it, was because I was also in a pandemic. I was also going through everything that everyone was going through. I was also trapped inside a house. Yes, I agree. I'm supremely privileged. Very supportive family, proper house, 3 meals a day. Everything I need is there. No hiccups, no hurdles in the basic necessities for sure. And yes, I'm supremely grateful for that and was grateful for it throughout the lockdown. Having said that, I still have mental health and it can still get bad even though I have everything. So for me, being stuck at home, so personally what I was going through was I was scheduled to be married in July and it obviously got cancelled and or postponed or whatever you'd like to say. And at that time, I was not even allowed to leave my house for 4 months to go and see my fiance, who literally lives 4 blocks down. It was really, really tough for me to mentally navigate through the process of not being able to see the person I'm longing to see the most, and then having to not know when I'm going to be married to this person. Yeah. So for me, that aspect of things got a little overwhelming through the lockdown. And then when I was working, my work amplified like every other mental health professional. And that amplification of work initially was manageable and then eventually led to a burnout for me personally, because I realized that I've bitten more than I can chew. And honestly, it took me a while to realize that. I was sort of like functioning on autopilot because I was just like, I have to do this. Like you said, we are limitless.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. So it was just the burden of the responsibility that now is my time to, this is what I've trained for. This is my job. I have to do it. I have to take care of people. I have to look out for them. And it wasn't just my clients then. It was my family. It was my relatives. Yep. It was my friends. It was basically anyone in my social environment was reaching out to me at that point.
Yep.
And that responsibility led to a burnout more than the actual work. I just felt like an overbearing sense of like I was carrying other people's emotions on me, and I was sort of helping them through it. And even though I don't have that much of an impact on people's life, I know I'm not, I know that I don't have that kind of power, and I'm aware that I have a limited amount of influence in people's life. But at that point, it felt like my influence was a lot more.
Well, there's not that many of you over there, right? I mean, isn't mental health like still struggling for relevance within the medical umbrella? Like you guys, last time I talked to you was, I don't even know, 2.5 years ago. But I remember you saying something like, it's not even an insurance benefit.
Now it is.
Good. That's great. That's progress, right? But if that's the case, how many people could possibly be in the profession that doesn't reimburse for the care? It would be all like cash pay for the wealthy and whatnot. Like,
I mean, I can tell you precisely, we are only 2,000 clinical psychologists in India.
Shut up. Out of 1.3 billion with a B people. Wow. Do you like know them all? Do you guys like hang out at conferences together? 2,000. I had more people in my high school, Jesse. I graduated with a class of like 425, and there were like 2,200 people in my high school. That was 25 years ago. There's 2,000 psychologists in all of India.
I mean, of course, a lot more number of people trained to be a psychologist, but they don't really end up actually being in the profession or practicing in our country. So,
well, let's talk about that for a second, because I don't know how the stratification works. Because so over here, and this might be useful for people who are listening, we have multiple levels of like mental health care workers, if you will. So at the top would be MD, medical doctor. That would be your psychiatrist if you're doing mental health or behavioral health. Now, traditionally, the psychiatrist was your talk therapist. They also dealt in medicine, but these days they get paid far better for medication management consultation than they do for talk therapy. So they spend more of their time managing medicine, and a lot of them are very skilled clinicians too at therapy, but most of the time they're just spent doing medicine. Now, below that, you have other doctoral level, but they're not medical doctors, and that would be your psychologists, and they can be clinical psychologists, educational psychologists, sports psychologists, all sorts of things. That would be your PhD, EDD degree type holders. And then below that, you have master's level clinicians like myself. That's your marriage and family therapist, clinical professional counselor, clinical social worker. And then below that, you've got bachelor's level. And depending on where you are in the United States, bachelor's level can get you a lot of things. It can get you community health worker. It can get you drug and alcohol counselor. You can also have a master's degree and be a drug and alcohol counselor. And then below that, we've got people who don't require any degree at all, which would be your peer support specialists and in-home workers in some cases. And so there's this kind of stratification here. And obviously, as you go down the pyramid, so to speak, there should be more people at the base of the pyramid because entry is easier. The academic and financial barriers aren't there. So I'm curious how it goes in your country and how that all looks.
So the hierarchy is pretty much the same, but the internal bifurcation within each hierarchy is not. So yes, of course, the highest is an MD psychiatrist. Then do come the PhDs, and the PhDs can be in clinical neuro, forensic psychology,
so just like
psychology. Yeah. And then there's the master's level, just like you said, and then there's the bachelor's level. But in India, the bachelor's level cannot be employed. Like that's not, you're not qualified to practice in any capacity if you just have a bachelor's degree in psychology. You have to have a master's degree to do anything, which is a good sort of some rules and restrictions we do need, and this is something that's minimum, like bare minimum. And within that, so basically the master's degree for a clinical psychologist versus a counseling psychologist are sort of different in the sense of counseling psychologists in India are given a lot more leeway to be like, oh, even if you've done a 6 months course, which is a diploma, you're still allowed to be a counselor in a school. But as a clinical psychologist, that does not qualify. You have to have a master's degree and maybe more, like maybe an MPhil degree and then a PhD. So that's it's pretty much the same bifurcation, but it's just less strict, I would say. That somebody who's just done a master's and not got a PhD will still work with the capacity of someone who has a PhD because of the number of years of experience.
Got it.
Something on those lines, but the hierarchy is pretty much the same, I would say. And here, like I was saying before, the number of psychologists, when I say psychologists, I mean clinical and counseling, because everything else we don't really qualify as in we don't really have that many bifurcations. Like I mentioned, there's clinical, counseling, and industrial. So when an industrial psychologist is only working in one section, so one sector of the community, and that's pretty much corporates, HR, etc. Whereas the clinical and counseling psychologists are the ones who are pretty much dealing with population in the sense of taking on therapy clients, one-on-one, working in hospitals, working in clinics, so on and so forth, which is a very small number of people. So I'm not looking at psychologists as a whole. I'm talking about clinical and counseling psychologists, which will be probably 2,000, maybe 2,500 in the whole country.
Huh. Wow. So the other ones, the industrial psychologists, those would be like